my friends, and welcome again. Welcome to another episode of Cinemacast. Hold on a second. I think my microphone is a little too low. There we go. Now we're nice and loud for you guys. How are you guys doing? It is Monday. Brand new episode for season 3 of Cinemacast right here on YouTube and on Rumble if you guys are following me on Rumble as well. So let's get into today's topic. Today's feature just came out. This is one that people have been waiting for ever since the trailer came out, but yet the sequel that nobody really needed or probably wanted, and that is Happy Gilmore 2, starring Adam Sandler once again. Now, when this movie was first announced, just over a year or so ago, that it was, Happy Gilmore 2 is in production with Adam Sandler. People thought maybe it was going to come to theaters, right? Well, it seems to be the other case of, will this movie flop? Will it be a box office flop or whatever? But you know what? When it comes to movies like this, if you know you're not going to make back your budget on a movie in theaters, because nowadays the movie theater going experience, it's trying to get back up there since the COVID pandemic back in 2020. You know, people weren't going to movies as much. They were watching movies at home. Movies were being made for Netflix, Peacock, Hulu, whatever streaming service that you had. And it's like, when you got an idea for something like this, you want it to go into theaters and see how well it does. Case in point, I did a review for Beetlejuice, I think it was late last year. And let me tell you, the Beetlejuice sequel, it was good for what it was. You know, it had some good nostalgia to it. It had explanation as to why certain characters were not involved. You had Michael Keaton back on the realm of, you know, playing the titular part. And you had a story that was so, but I think it was just more entertaining and enjoyable for its nostalgia factor because people wanted another Beetlejuice movie. And then you got other movies as well that's been out, you know, since, 30, 40, even 50 years ago. And it's like, what is the need for a sequel to movies like these that are already instant classics? Movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th, anything of that nature. Even in the 90s, you had movies like Hocus Pocus 2, which of course received a sequel that even the die-hard Hocus Pocus fans are like, yeah, we did not need this at all. Then you had Nickelodeon movies like Good Burger. They released Good Burger 2 about a year ago. And yes, that was a stinker and a half as well. But it's like, what is the need for a sequel to a movie that was already a grand success from whatever decade it was, you know, prior to the year 2000? Like, do you honestly need a sequel to a movie like that? It's unnecessary. And then you get some sequels that come out and they either strike the mark, you know, just barely, or it becomes an instant hit for people. And they're like, yeah, I really do love this movie. And that's just the biggest thing nowadays. It's like Hollywood either ran out of ideas or they figure, okay, people are watching movies more on Netflix and on Peacock. You know, it's easy to fund and make a movie for a streaming service like Netflix, where, you know, all you're getting is the royalties for the movie from streaming services like Netflix. If you got 5 billion people watching Netflix and subscribing to them and they all watch Happy Gilmore 2, there you go. There's some royalties. There's some funding for the movie right there that's going to come in return. But I feel like, yes, a movie like this, they probably picked the right path to go. The right path to go when it comes to releasing a movie like this. You know, other than other movies that have come out in the past and tried to do the theater thing and either was a hit or a miss. Like I said, case in point, Beetlejuice. When that movie came out, it was a hit. It really was. Some people hated it. A lot of people liked it for various reasons. I liked it for its entertainment value, even though the story was kind of convoluted a little bit with some plot holes and such. But I think, you know, just the nostalgic factor of seeing these characters back in the act again made it all worthwhile. So it was pretty entertaining for the most part. There was some good scenes in that movie. But what can I say about a movie like Happy Gilmore 2? And everybody was waiting for this movie to come out. And this weekend, I think it was Saturday, they were like, Happy Gilmore Day. It's finally out and about. People are watching it. But the biggest question is, are people enjoying a movie like this? Are they really enjoying the nostalgia factor that a movie like this has on people? Do they like the story? Do they like seeing these characters back in it, from 30 years ago? And of course, Happy Gilmore, when that first came out, it was an instant hit. Adam Sandler, he had so many great movies under his belt back in the 90s. And some of them were greatest hits, just like Jim Carrey. When Jim Carrey came out with some hits back in the 90s, he had hit after hit after hit. With movies like Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, Cable Guy, The Mask. Even the year was 1994. When you had Ace Ventura that was in theaters, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber. He had so many grand hits that came out, and of course, Adam Sandler was the same way. Adam Sandler had movies like Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. God, what the fuck else was that? I can't even think off the top of my goddamn head right now. But let me look. So if I look at his filmography, okay, he had some movies prior to that weren't that great, I guess. He played in movies like Going Overboard. I didn't even hear about that movie until sometime later. Shakes the Clown. He was in Shakes the Clown. I remember him in that movie right there. And he had some, little parts in movies like Coneheads, because you got to figure the early 90s, early to mid 90s, Saturday Night Live was a thing. And that's how a lot of these movie stars, they hit the big time, is Saturday Night Live. You had Dan Aykroyd, you had Phil Hartman, Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, David Spade, all these characters, all these actors that were on Saturday Night Live, they had movies all together, and they were spectacular hits. And one of them, Coneheads was one of them where he had a minor part in it. But then he was in movies like Airheads, of course, and then Mixed Nuts. I'd never seen Mixed Nuts. That's got Steve Martin in it. But starting in 1995, he had some serious roles, and they took off like a bat out of hell. Movies like Billy Madison. You had Happy Gilmore, which came out in 96. He was in Bulletproof with Damon Wayans in 96 also. And then you had movies like The Wedding Singer. Everybody absolutely loved The Wedding Singer. And let's see here. I'll just take him. Let's see. Alrighty. And then you had The Water Boy. What was this? Dirty Work? Oh, Dirty Work with Norm Macdonald. That was another good one too. Yeah, I forgot he had a part in there. The Water Boy, Big Daddy, Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo. My personal favorite in 2000, which turns 25 years old this year, is Little Nicky. I love the hell out of Little Nicky, especially, with a brief cameo from Ozzy Osbourne in the movie. Rest in peace, Ozzy. I don't remember seeing him in he produced Joe Dirt. There was just so many movies that came out within the last 30 years that were a lot of hits for him, or some of them were even stinkers. Punch Drunk Love, Mr. Deeds. Let me see, Anger Management with Jack Nicholson, 51st Dates. That's another favorite of mine, even though people did not like that movie at all. But then, when it got to the 2010s and up, he did have a lot of stinkers, Grown Ups. Let's see, he produced Paul Blart. I didn't care too much for that shit. People might have they might like Grown Ups too. I don't know. I didn't care too much for it. He was in Hotel Transylvania. That's an animated movie right there. But yeah, just right now, here we are, 2025, almost 30 years later, you have Happy Gilmore 2. And this movie hit Netflix rather than go straight to the fucking movie theaters. And I think they really did a good part with deciding this movie to be on a streaming service rather than be in a theater, because I don't think, with word of mouth, people are not going to go to theaters to see this movie. They're not going to bring in their buck that they put out for. So yeah, this is a sequel to Happy Gilmore from '96. It stars Adam Sandler, Julie Bowen, Christopher McDonald, of course, reprising his role as Shooter McGavin. You got Ben Stiller reprising his role as the crazy guy working in the nursing home. Dennis Dugan. I can't remember. I can't say I remember his part from the original. I didn't really see too much of the original. All I know is I've seen certain parts of Happy Gilmore. I know he was a hockey player. You know, he was suspended for being too violent or too wild. He ended up taking golf, and then that just ended up being a big thing. Now there could be maybe a couple little spoilers, but I will say, going into this movie, it probably doesn't matter to a lot of people because you probably already heard word of mouth. Yeah, this movie is not that great at all, but let's get right into it. So you got to figure the first 5 minutes of the movie, you're looking back on nostalgia factors. You know, you got glimpses of the first movie about what happened when he won the tournament, what happened to this person, what happened to Happy after he won the tournament. So it starts off after winning the first tournament championship in '96. Gilmore has a successful golfing career, winning 5 more championships. He also has 5 children with his wife, Virginia Vennett, who is played by Julie Bowen. But then after accidentally killing Virginia in 2014 when one of his drives hits her in the head, which is probably, you know, a sad point in the movie, but also pretty funny how it is. You know, you see this golf ball flying right at her and just like, she's just done. So after all this, he felt so devastated after her funeral and he quits golf out of guilt. And then, of course, you know, his life starts taking a turn for the worse, going downhill. He becomes an alcoholic. He ends up losing everything, including the house that his grandmother left him in the first one. And, you know, repossessive worker sues him for instigating a brawl when mistaking the worker for a car thief, of course. And then here we go, 11 years later, after that, Happy works at a supermarket and lives with his only daughter and her youngest child, Vienna, who has 4... Yeah, his only daughter and his youngest child, which is, you know, the 5th child. While his 4 sons, they all moved out and they're all working to support their father and their sister. And of course, there's always a pitch to the story, you know, to like, okay, what's the drive for this story? You know, Vienna wants to pursue a dancing career, and the classes that she wants to take, they're all in a school in Paris, and they cost $75,000 yearly. And then, of course, you know, you have this young guy, Frank Manatee. Who is he played by? Oh, Benny Safety? Safety? I don't fucking know. He looked like a real fucking douchebag in the movie anyway, so fuck him. I don't care. So he's a CEO of Maxi Energy Drink and the upcoming golf league Maxi. So he later approaches Happy and wants him to be the league star, even though Happy refuses but resumes to play golf with the encouragement from John Daly, wanting to win enough money to put Vienna through ballet school. So in comes the biggest part of the movie, of course, where he has to quit drinking. He becomes an alcoholic. He tries to take up golfing again, which ends up being such a big failure for him at the time. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is Happy Gilmore? He looks very rough. Like, he don't even know how to play golf anymore. That's how bad he looks. But this is something that he's trying to do. He's trying to work out for his daughter, get back into golfing so he can win a tournament to earn enough money to be able to send his daughter to this ballet school, do for her and do for her family. So he returns to regular golf, which is one of the biggest points in the movie. Regular golf is getting ready to be killed off. I don't know what the hell that part of the story is. It's like, okay, you got this guy who runs Maxi Golf, which is like a faster version of golf. You know, it's like anything happens in this golf. It's not regular golf. It's just like different. It's almost like the fucking American Ninja Warrior of golf, basically. You know, it's like, oh, this is a faster way of playing golf, da-da-da, this and that. And it's going to overtake actual golf that we've had for like 100 years or so, ever since it became an actual sport. So Happy ends up becoming one of the 30 champions one of the 30 top champions who's trying to get into the top 10 to be one of the top 5 to compete against the top 5 for Maxi Golf to determine the fate of actual golf. It's like, who's going to be the hero? Who's going to save golf? You know, who's going to keep this one douchebag from taking over and making his version of golf the next big thing? And that's pretty much where everything comes into play. You got these top players that are being picked. And of course, Happy Gilmore being Happy Gilmore, looking for his happy place, ends up getting his groove back. You know, his move that he uses, the big trick shot with the golf ball, hitting hole-in-ones, hitting other people's golf balls in the air and turning them into dust and everything else. Now, one thing you're probably asking, where is Shooter McGavin's character at? Well, he doesn't have too big of a role in it, but he does make a big comeback in this movie in a very, very oddball way for Shooter McGavin. You know, in the first movie, he was like the Darth Vader to Adam Sandler's Luke Skywalker in the first Happy Gilmore. That's who he was playing against. You know, that's the guy that got the shit beat out of him for stealing the jacket at the end of the movie. So the movie plays out where Shooter McGavin, after all that has happened, he went crazy and he was committed to an insane asylum, to which the guy who runs Maxi Golf ends up seeking his release and bails him out of the institution just so he can get him to play for Maxi Golf. But then the tables turn where Shooter McGavin's like, nah, I'm not really going to do it. It's a crazy idea. I won't let you kill off regular golf. So he takes off from there. He ends up injuring the guy, of course, by pouring coffee on his face and then running out. And then, of course, there is a scene in the movie where Shooter McGavin and Gilmore, they meet up in a graveyard, you know, and they have this little mini brawl, which only lasts maybe, 30 to 60 seconds long before, you know, they're done and like, okay, we're even for this. And they get up and they're smiling and laughing. So it's like, okay, so the first movie, you got both of them insulting each other, going at each other's throats over a golf tournament. And in this one, they're basically friends after so long. they become friends after so long. And McGavin ends up helping out Gilmore along with these other top competitors to play against Maxi Golf to beat them in the tournament. And of course, there's one little notch to the story which adds a little bit, I don't know what to call it, but the guy that runs Maxi Golf, he discovered that there's this little ligament in the body that if it's surgically manipulated, that certain golfers can twist their body in a certain way and have enough power to swing their golf club and hit the golf ball in such a way that Happy Gilmore does with his special technique. So it's very cringe with that part of the story. It's like, okay, so you're looking for you're surgically manipulating your top golfers to where they're twisting their body 180 just to twerk it right back around to hit a golf ball further than Happy Gilmore. But Gilmore always finds a way to outsmart these players as well. And I will say the biggest piece of shit in this movie for me is Haley Joel Osment. Yes, the little boy from The Sixth Sense. He has an appearance in this movie, and it is cringy. It's very cringy as hell. Haley Joel Osment, he should be ashamed to even remotely star in this movie and have the cringiest character of all. There is just so much cringe with a lot of these characters in this movie. It just makes you want to turn it off about halfway through, and you're like, what the hell am I watching? Like, it feels like a Happy Gilmore movie, but it doesn't feel like a Happy Gilmore movie. It just feels like a poor attempt to make a sequel to a movie that really didn't need a sequel at all. It didn't really need it. They just brought it back and say, hey, maybe Adam Sandler wants to do a sequel 30 years in the making for Happy Gilmore. You know, here's Happy Gilmore 2. I'm like, this is a movie that didn't really need a sequel. Like, what are we going to do next? Are we going to see Billy Madison return? Are we going to see the Water Boy playing baseball now? Like, what are we going to do? Please don't touch little Nicky. Please don't fucking touch little Nicky. Don't. I mean, you already ruined Happy Gilmore, and I understand. Adam Sandler, he produced this movie. He wrote the script. I mean, this is Adam Sandler being Adam Sandler. I'm going to take a fan favorite from back then. I'm going to give the people what they want. But people are harsh on movies today anyway, because what is Hollywood already made of? Hollywood's, for the last 15, 20 years, have been nothing but superhero movies. Marvel, DC, whatever. It's all been the main focus has been on, Marvel movies cashing out. Then you have Dwayne Johnson, who's cashing out in movies. You got John Cena is trying to cash out in movies. I know they're all WWE, but it's like all these big franchises, all these big names out there, the top movie makers in Hollywood, they're all doing their damnness to bring certain franchises back, to continue certain franchises, sequels, prequels, threequels, whatever you call it. And this movie, with everything that it's got going for it, it's just, this was a poor attempt, I will say, a very poor attempt at a sequel that was not even really required. It was not necessary to bring a sequel in for this movie. Happy Gilmore was just good as it was and good as it should have been, and it should have never been touched at all. They should have never did anything to really, add any kind of nostalgia factor to the movie. Now, does this movie rely a lot on nostalgia? It can. When you bring certain characters back, such as Ben Stiller's character, Hal L., who was the abusive leader of support a group for alcoholics now, who was working in a nursing home in the first one, who mentally, I guess, tried to abuse his grandma in the home, by the way. But, yeah, Happy's character, he's an alcoholic. He's going through AA. He has to take AA classes in order to get back into golf and sober up. And of course, you got Ben Stiller's character, Hal, who's abusing these people in AA, telling them, okay, well, if that's how you feel, I need you to come clean my gutters. I need you to come wash my car. I need you to come do this and do that. Like, wow, like, you just took this character and you turned him into an even more fucking asshole than what he should have been, But I feel like that's what they did with a lot of these returning actors. Okay, so you have Steve Buscemi, who portrays the Gilmore's neighbor Pat. You got Steve Buscemi in there. You got John Farley, who's in there. You got a few of these old school Saturday Night Live actors that are in there in the cast. There's even a couple brief scenes with John Lovitz in there. You got Rob Schneider in there. Rob Schneider, he's like, you can do it, Happy. Like, of course you got to have Rob Schneider. Him and Adam Sandler, they've been best friends for so long. So like, yeah, of course you got to put him in there somewhere. So you got an all-star cast. You got some cameos, of course. You have actors and actresses like Julie Bowen returns for a brief segment. You got Christopher McDonald plays Shooter McGavin. And even some of Adam Sandler's kids make the mark. You got Jackie Sandler, Sadie Sandler, and Sonny Sandler. They're all girls, and I think that's just all of them. Yeah, you got all three of his kids in that movie. You got Haley Joel Osment, who's he's just cringy all around. I will say the biggest moment in this movie for me, that's probably the most hilarious, is they got Marshall Mathers in here. Yes, Eminem is in this fucking movie for a minute and a half. They got fucking Eminem in this fucking movie playing the role as Donald Jr., son of the late heckler who was known as Jackass Guy from the movie Happy Gilmore, who was played by John Flattery in the first one. Like, just a scene between Happy and Eminem right there. Eminem being Eminem. And then, of course, you got Happy's boys. He's standing on the side. He's like, we'll whoop your ass. Come here, motherfucker. It was just hilarious. Like, I think that's the one big scene that I could say I laughed at and I was like, yes, yes, yes. You know, is the fact that these four guys who are Happy Gilmore's sons, they pick fucking Eminem's ass up. He's like, "Oh, I'll beat your ass. Come here," and they're holding him, and they toss him in a fucking pond full of alligators, and the alligators presume to fucking eat his ass, and he's sitting there reciting all these goddamn lines from his songs and shit. I'm like, God damn. Oh, well, I guess that's the only satisfying part of the movie is watching these four random guys throw Eminem in a pond to get eaten by these fucking alligators. Like, that was the best part of the movie for me right there. I will say, for the most part, the movie has a decent story going for it. Even though there's some points in the movie, some spots in the movie that feels like there's some plot holes or there needs to be some explanation to it, or it could have been tweaked a little better, or maybe just not necessary to have in the movie. Was it a bad movie? Was it garbage? Was it terrible? It is what it is. It's what you make it as. There's people that say, don't watch it. I couldn't make it through it. It was garbage. It was bad. For me, I could tell it's bad. I could tell that they tried to do something a little bit newer with the character. They tried to make it a little more like the original, but it's a more modernized version of the original. That's what I could say. You know, they did have some flashbacks to the original movie in certain ways that kind of made sense, but didn't kind of make sense. And of course, you know, certain characters they brought back, and it's like, okay, you had to do a flashback on certain characters. There's a golfer who was a caddy named Billy, the one that, you know, Gilmore choked out in the first movie, and they had to show a scene of it from the first movie. It was, oh, okay, that explains who that character was. So yeah, there are a good bit of scenes that have flashbacks to explain or help explain to a newer audience who's watching it. And they're like, oh, okay, so now I got to go back and watch the first one to see where this character falls in line at. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then you got other characters that are mentioned but are dead. You know, they're all, you know, the actors have died off, or their characters have died off in the first movie, of course. So there is a lot of throwback. There is a lot of nostalgia to this movie, of course. I feel that it is kind of necessary to have some throwback rather than the movie completely ignored everything from the first one. So I was like, yeah, you gotta have some story build up. You gotta have some explanation as to who some of these characters are. You gotta have some explanation to certain things. So nostalgia, yeah, you know, some flashbacks. I feel like they were placed in certain areas that were appropriate to the story. That way it kept you like, okay, I forgot what happened to this person. I forgot who this was. Oh, okay, that's who that was. Okay. So I think some of the throwback scenes, they weren't necessary, but they were necessary in a way. They were put in there in a way to, it's like, okay, now I fully understand. But this movie, when it comes to the humor, it has some dry slapstick humor. It tried to be an Adam Sandler movie, but along the way, it fell short for a lot of people. I enjoyed the story quite a bit, even though it was cheesy. There was a lot of cringy areas where I'm like, yeah, they shouldn't have done that, but it was fucking stupid, you know? Like, even the dialogue for some of the characters is just like, I gotta make it through. But if we go down to the reception for the movie, so on a review aggravator with RottenTomatoes.com, here we go. They gave it a 66% out of 58 critics' reviews are positive. Mind you, Happy Gilmore, the first one, received a 62%, so it's within the same range of the rating. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned a film score of 51 out of 100, indicating mixed or average reviews. Richard Roper on RogerEbert.com gave the film, hey, look at this, 3 out of 4 stars, and wrote, the humor is as lowbrow as it gets. Either you find it funny or you don't. I never been a huge fan of that stuff, but the physical Three Stooges material has certain, admittedly dumb slapstick appeal. Still, Happy Gilmore makes par, though, the strength of its sheer stupid energy in the game efforts of Sandler and his 50 or so co-stars. It's good to be back in that happy place. And then you got conversely, Frank Scheck of The Hollywood Reporter said, other than a running gag revolving around Happy's use of every possible object as a liquor container, the film's main humor involves people being painfully hit by golf balls. By the time the movie ends, if you've been assaulted by one tired gag after another, you'll know exactly how they feel. And then Liz Shannon Miller of Consequence gave the film a B- and commented, between Happy's family life and a whole new series of challenges for him to tackle, there's enough freshness to the plot to keep it from feeling like a total rehash of what came before, and while still delivering wild golf stunts and a huge range of cameos, which is what this movie pretty much brought into play. And it does do it so well. So there are mixed reviews, yeah, and I think I would agree with all these reviews right there, especially with how the movie played out, certain scenes, how they played out, the way the story ran its course. I think there's just a couple things in the movie that were pretty cringe about it, but once you make it through those hurdles, those obstacles, the movie does do better itself in certain areas. And it's just, like I said, it's an Adam Sandler movie. It's for a modern audience. It's not the same humor that we grew up with in the 90s or the early 2000s. But Happy Gilmore 2 does hit its mark, and it leaves a place up on a mantle for another trophy and such. Now, what do I give this movie? After seeing it once, I might watch it again. I'm not sure. Depends on how I feel. I would honestly give Happy Gilmore 2, I'll meet him halfway with a 5 out of 10. It's low, but it meets you halfway. This movie is a teeter-totter for people. You either love it or you hate it. There's an audience out there that loves the fact that he's donning the Bruins jersey again, that he's got the slapstick hockey stick right there, as you see on the poster. He's got his golf clubs. He's got the Subway golf club carrier. There's some nostalgic throwback for you right there. Some of the cameos, they can be pretty awesome in a sense. The story does have a good drive to it, even though there are some areas in the movie and the story that just kind of feels out of place. But like I said, it's trying not to be a mashup of what used to be with the original. It's trying not to be the original. It's trying to be its own vehicle and drive very differently than what the original has. But still, it brings in some nostalgia to remind you that, hey, this is what happened. Imagine driving the same car for over years. Imagine driving a 70 Mustang that's very good, that you love dearly, and then you drive a Mustang from 2015. It's still the same name. It's very different. Maybe you love the original better, or maybe you like the new one just a little bit more, or you love them both equally. That's how I see this movie, Happy Gilmore. So, love it or hate it, 5 out of 10 Happy Gilmore. And it's good to have it on Netflix, rather than spend $15 on a movie ticket to go see it in the movies. Go check out Happy Gilmore 2. Now, did you guys check it out for yourselves? What do you guys think about this movie? Let me know down in the comments section if you guys love it or hate it. What were your favorite scenes from it, etc. And so for it, let's end today's review. Let's go ahead. We are at the end of today's episode of Cinemacast. I would like to thank you guys for checking out our content. Thank you for watching us all the way to the end. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe down below if you guys have yet to do so. This review is up on our Rumble channel as well. Link for that is down below in the description section. Thank you for joining me today for today's feature of Happy Gilmore 2, guys. And until next time, we will catch you right back here at the cinema.